Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Back Shed Bible Study. It is, can you believe it, July 6th, 2020. We are at episode number 15, which means we've been in COVID for 16 weeks. Oh man, what do we do with that? Well, I am thrilled that you all have decided to join us this morning, and as I kind of look at my screen over here, it shows me that nobody has joined us yet online, but that's all right because people will go back and watch this a little bit later. But I am thrilled to welcome to the Backshed today my friend Tim Dakin. Good morning, Tim, and
Morning.
welcome to my mess. As you can see,
It looks very manly. I love it.
well, I love this place. This has become a little bit of a refuge for me in the last 4 months, where I can come out here and kind of do my studying. I brought my extra computer screen from the office. I brought my even handy dandy keyboard and all that, and this is my office.
So when you say refuge, I mean, does that mean there's something that you want to get away from part of the day?
Well, 4 kids and a dog are a lot of fun, and a true adventure. And there is a good chance that the dog will join us at some point. She comes in here and literally, and this is a 3-month-old puppy, Sunshine. She just comes in here, and if I'm not talking to anyone on Zoom, she just sits at my feet quietly, lets me kind of rub her belly with my feet and all that, and I can do my work. But if I'm talking to somebody, she'll walk in and she'll just start barking at me, like, give me attention.
Wow.
Right now, Tim, you are a psychologist, are you not?
Marriage and family therapist is
I
the.
was trying to elevate you a little higher there, Tim.
I'm not so
Um,
sure that's an elevation, but yeah, okay, I'll take it.
so is there any psychology to this, though, to the dog vying for my attention? I'm guessing this is a real thing.
Oh, it's a totally real thing. Yeah, it's what the people at the Gottman Institute would refer to as a bid for connection.
Oh man. Okay, we're gonna say hello to a few people. We have Sharon Soden, Donna Dews is online, Marilyn Robertson. Excuse me, Marilyn. I'm sorry. How rude of me to get your name wrong. I know you too. And Heather Johnson. Heather says hello, Tim. She says she knows you.
Hi, Heather.
Well, I don't know. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she's just being kind and welcoming you. But today's going to be a lot of fun. So here's kind of the story with Tim, and I love to be transparent and just kind of show all my cards at the outset here. Good morning, Kathy. Good to have you online here. So I went into this last week planning to have a different guest on here, and it's Steve Heller, who Tim, I don't know. Do you know Steve at all?
You know, that name is familiar, but I'm not sure where from.
Yeah, so Steve went to Sunrise for a long time. He's been over at Lakeside for the last several years, but a big part of our men's ministry at Sunrise, and he actually puts on our big men's retreat that we do every year with several other churches, called Men in HD. And so anyway, Steve's a stud, and so I totally had booked him to join me what I thought was today and what he thought was next week. And so so I will.
I'm really helping you out of a jam.
You're helping me out of a huge jam. So I completely was all ready, and then he texted me the other day. He says, all right, we're on for the 13th, right? Yeah, we're on for the 13th. So for the rest of you out there, April and I think we went to Home Depot the other day on a date. I don't know. This is where we go. We go to, when you're in the middle of a kitchen remodel, you go to Home Depot on your date. And yes, Heather, Tim from Fair Oaks. That is correct, who you see right now before you. So we're on our way back from Home Depot, and we're driving back into our neighborhood, and we see Tim and Terry walking through the neighborhood, as they always do. And if I can tell you, Tim, because you are my neighbor, like, you are almost a stone's throw from my house. If I was a professional pitcher in the major league, you would be a stone's throw from my house.
exactly.
As it is, I can barely make it to the sidewalk if I was to throw something. Um, but we're driving through the neighborhood. We see Tim and Terry in their rapid walk. I don't know anyone that walks as fast as the two of you do. You're like on a mission, which I'm very impressed. But we see Tim and Terry. We end up stopping. I don't know what we talked for at least 20 minutes in the
Oh,
middle of the
at
road.
least, yeah.
And it was I have to tell you, for April and I, it was super refreshing to talk to a couple of adults. You
Well,
know,
you didn't seem like you were in any hurry to get home, and
right?
that was one
No,
thing that
no.
kind of concerned me.
We were oh, was this when we oh, we were coming back from date night.
Yeah, I was going to say, you told me you were out at a restaurant.
Yeah, we had gone on a date.
Your
And
first date in like months, right?
oh yeah, like probably our first date since January or February, where it was us at a restaurant. That's kind of what
Yeah.
we do, these little like drive to Pete's as soon as our daughter goes to sleep for her afternoon nap. We'll run over to Pete's and grab coffee. But this was our first date, and it was, the really cool thing is this dates all the way back to October. I don't know if you guys do much for over at Fair Oaks for Pastors Appreciation Month in October.
A lot of our people recognize us. Yes, it's great.
Right. Well, we don't organize, like we've never organized this, because the last thing I'm going to do as a pastor and go, hey, it's October, everyone celebrate me.
Here's
Uh,
my list.
right. Aren't you so thankful for me? And so but our elders totally decided they were going to do Pastors Appreciation Month. And it was the coolest thing ever. Like, they put all these baskets out in our lobby of the church for a couple of weeks and just said, hey, come love on our pastors. And so somebody in our church, actually somebody that lives very close to both you and me, she gave us a very generous gift card to go to Siena. Um, and April and I have been there once and paid for it ourselves, and that was like, whoa. And but we had this very generous gift card to go to Siena, so we went up to Roseville because Placer County is open, and
Yeah.
and had dinner at Siena, which, Janet, it was wonderful. Can I just say it? It was wonderful. Jana. Um, I called her the wrong name. Anyway, so so what you're alluding to is we didn't want to get home. So literally we're driving home, and we drive the longest way possible from Roseville to get to Fair Oaks, which is like, we go all the way out Douglas to Auburn Folsom and all the way back down to the freeway and back up to Hazel.
And you're driving through the neighborhood at about 3 miles an hour. I mean, it was
right.
slower than you needed to drive. Just saying.
So we end up seeing Tim and Terry, and we stop and talk to them for a while. And of course I'm like, hey, you want to join me on the Backshed Bible study sometime? He's like, sure, when? Like, how about Monday? Oh, but okay, so Tim, you and I go way back.
We do.
Like, I'm looking at this because we've only lived in Sacramento like 6 years, but you and I go back to the days when your son Todd and your daughter Tracy went to camp at Hume Lake.
Yep. They never missed a year.
Yeah.
And you were a huge part of why Hume meant so much to them.
Oh, it was fun days. So I don't know if you know the whole story, but I think the year that I got to know Todd the best, and his cousin Ryan, was when all these boys there. I have this whole cabin. I'm this, what they call a lead counselor, so kind of a counselor to the counselors, and there's this whole cabin of guys from Fair Oaks Pres at the time. Dave
Price.
Dave Price, right?
Pastor.
Dave Price is their youth pastor, and I think Dave Brubaker is their counselor or something like that. And or somebody else, who knows? But Price is their youth pastor, and he's like, "Hey, Cliff, keep an eye on this one cabin, would you? You just want to watch this one cabin of boys." Well, sure enough, like, they decide they're going to sneak out, and it is just this great game to them. And I'm this, like, kind of green, new, a little wet behind the ears, staff guy in my first or second summer at Hume Lake. And so these boys all sneak out, and of course I catch them, and I'm getting a little frustrated with these boys because they're just kind of making a mockery of all this. It's like they exist, or I exist, so that they can, like, it's the Roadrunner Coyote thing, if I
It was
can.
bizarro world because they thought they were in charge.
Oh, well, and frankly they were. I I'm
I
just
love to
glad.
hear my son tell this story even today. He's 37 years old, and he tells it with such flourish.
Well, what I'm really glad is that their other cousin wasn't involved, because he came up with another church back in the day.
Yeah.
If he had been involved, I might as well have just shut the camp down and just handed it over to them. Um,
I think there was a quota of kids related in our family that were allowed on the camp property at a one time because,
right.
yeah.
So I catch these boys sneaking out, and I'm getting frustrated with them, and so finally I'm like, all right, we're going to the dining hall, and you guys are going to you guys are going to set up the dining hall. It's Friday night, it's the last night of camp. So they're like, what are you going to do? Send us home in the middle of the night on the last night of camp? And so I send them down to the dining hall. Now I'm curious, what did they tell you?
About that, well, they said that you were like pretty much you'd had 3 bags full at that point.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, they must have done a couple other things at some point during the week
Oh
because,
yeah. Well,
or maybe they were framed. I don't know. But in any event, the way they tell it is Cliff was like at his max, and so he gives us this thing to do, which you're probably going to explain now.
yeah.
And the point, the boys from their standpoint was, you were giving them the most serious kind of onerous punishment known to Hume Lake.
Right.
And they determined to reframe this thing and turn it into the best night of camp ever.
And frankly, it was. And I'm not joking. This may be one of the most memorable moments of my camping career. But I send them down take them down into the dining hall. It's like 2 a.m, maybe midnight, somewhere between midnight and 2 a.m. And I'm like, all right, boys. And I show them this empty dining hall. It's just full of empty tables, 70 empty tables, because we're going to feed 700 people breakfast in a few hours. And these boys are like, all right, you got to set up the entire dining hall for a breakfast, which back then you had KPs, the whole kitchen patrol thing, where these campers would have to come a half an hour before breakfast if they were assigned KP, and set up all of all the forks, knives, spoons, cups, all of this stuff, all the plates, and get everything ready for breakfast. So I'm like, all right, you 6 boys, whatever it is, are going to get in there, and you have to set up the entire dining hall, and it's got to be perfect. And so at this point, I set them to it, and then I just dumbest thing ever is I decide to leave at that point and go work on something else. And I think I can tell this story in front of people from our church. Um, yeah, they don't do KP anymore, Heidi. That's this story is what led to this. But no, not really. I'm embellishing it just a little bit. But anyway, I come back maybe a half an hour later, and every single one of these boys has stripped down to their boxer
I was
shorts.
hoping you could tell this on a family show. Yeah.
Right. Frankly, there aren't any kids. The average person that watches our Backshed Bible study is 65-year-old females. So that's what Facebook demographics tell me, and I go with it. Like,
Yeah, sure.
These ladies are great.
Yeah.
But anyway, these boys have stripped down to their boxer shorts, and they are setting up the dining room like in just pure glee. One of them has this huge old stack of plates, and he's throwing them across to the other guy
They were
on the other side.
frisbeeing things. They were, yeah.
It was pure comedy, and I couldn't help but just laugh at this point. And I'm so glad the health department didn't show up. But they had the night of their lives, and frankly, it was like the most innocent kind of fun these kids could be doing. So what formed after that, and again, I look back and I talk to my friends that I worked with at camp with. They're like, I could have been fired for so many things that I let campers get away with, because these boys came back the very next year. They're like, do we get to set up KP again? And it becomes this tradition for the Fair Oaks
What do
Pres
we have
guys.
to do to get punished this year?
Gosh. Oh, so that was how I met Todd Dakin, and got to hear lots of stories about his parents and his sister. I find out he's cousins to Ryan and Randy and Eric Davis, and who had become friends of mine as campers, and their dad Scott, who is your brother-in-law, becomes
Right.
one of my dear friends. And Scott, as you know, we had this conversation the other day. I keep trying to get to come on Backshed Bible Study, and he absolutely refuses. But you tell me we're probably, well, Terry tells me we're probably better off not to have him on.
I think it'd be great. I think it'd be good for him. It'd be great for your show.
Well, he is a man, if I can digress here for a second, he is a man that I just have a huge respect for, because he may be one of the more teachable people that I've ever known. And I watched from the time when I met him in 1997. 97 was when I met Scott, till, just to watch a huge growth spiritually in him, just to develop a heart and a passion for missions. He was a kind of entrepreneur businessman that just grappled through a whole season of his life with what it means to serve the Lord. And I love his weekly emails. I was just reading his this morning, and
That was a good one today.
yeah. So anyway, I've loved how you and I have been connected over the years,
Great.
and in this last 5 years since we've lived in this neighborhood, to see you and Terry out there all the time is just a blast. And
we love walking by your house to see if we can see any kids bouncing up fence high from the trampoline they have in the back there.
Right. So I want to ask you a couple questions, Tim. You're over at Fair Oaks, and I think I'm really clever when I do this, but people are like, is he at Fair Oaks Pres? I'm like, yeah, he's at Fair Oaks Presbyterian Church.
Yeah. We've kind of put it in grayscale.
Yeah, I saw the logo, but tell me how things have been going over there. Josh and I have become pretty good friends over the last couple of years. And for those of you who don't know, Josh is senior pastor over there. But how has the last 4 months been for you guys?
Oh, the last 4 months. It's been a real challenge for us. Well, it's been a real challenge for every church.
Right. Yeah.
People have, people love to worship. I mean, Christians love to worship. It's kind of what we do, and so the main piece of ministry has been radically, changed.
Right.
I don't want to say it's been erased, but it's been changed. No. It's very dramatically different. But I got to tell you, there's an upside to everything that, God sends our way. And the upside is we hired a media director around the time a lot of this but right before a lot of this happened. And this guy has taken our Sunday morning worship. I don't want to call it a product, but I mean, that Sunday morning worship.
Right. Just like I don't want to call this a show.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
And just the level of professionalism and just the quality of the experience of worshiping. If it has to be virtual, Jason Ross has just transformed it for us, because we just weren't there in the world of video like a lot of churches have been. We just didn't have the right people on the bus at that time. And man, by getting Jason, it's just been a super kind of experience.
Well, and I've watched it before. So one of the things that I've enjoyed doing during this season is getting up early on a Sunday morning, and I just kind of stream all the services. Like I haven't been able to watch other services before.
Well, a lot of people don't know this. If you work for a church, you don't get to go to other guys' church, other people's churches, and have. Maybe you get 3 weeks off a year, and so that's your exposure to other church services.
Right. And so it has been so fun, and I've been able to watch a few of your services and been really, really impressed with what you guys are doing. So all of you at Sunrise, I would encourage you to not watch their services. Um, oh, let's see. We got a couple of comments. Oh yeah, Donna, you went to Glendale Presbyterian back in the day.
Wow.
Gosh, in the 50s, 55 to 65. Wow. Golly.
That's very close to where I went to school, which is Fuller Seminary. Glendale's right down there.
Yeah, right down there, Pasadena area in the San Gabriel Valley. Yeah, know that area incredibly well. Well, I think what we weren't ready for was how quickly online services would take off. And um, talk with me a little bit. Early on, I was told, or kind of mid-pandemic, I was told restarting church is going to be a lot harder than it was for you to go online and stop your in-person meetings. It's going to be a lot harder to restart. Have you guys experienced that?
We sure have. I mean, one of the things that I was convinced of from the very beginning is that people are going to be clamoring to come back to church.
Yeah.
But when they got back on campus, they weren't going to be happy with what they saw, because
Exactly.
we knew people weren't talking about it much or weren't thinking about it, but I knew people were going to have to come back. They're going to have to socially distance. They're going to have to maybe not even sing, probably enforce wearing masks. It's not
Right.
going to be anything like, oh, now we get to just come back. It's going to be very different. And unless you work putting those things together, you probably don't think about that. You were just
Right.
hoping you'd go back to church and just kind of resume speed, but it doesn't happen that way.
And so you guys restarted, and we're probably doing the same thing we were. 100 people in the room, social distance, masks, kind of everything. And I think in our first week, we kind of were in this mask optional because the wording that the health department put out was a recommendation as opposed to a mandate.
Right.
And so we took those words very literally. And yet, a week or two later, we were in a masks only environment, and and going with that. And then we're starting and talking about no singing, and go and hum to your heart's content. I mean, it's just hard. And I mean, I don't know about you and Josh, but I've received a lot of feedback.
What I love about Josh is he gets most of the feedback. Because he's the senior.
Right. I don't have that guy. My guy's in Canada, and he's not getting the feedback.
the buck stops with Cliff.
Oh, this is great. Valerie Connor's like, sorry, I watch them often. Valerie may be my favorite viewer that we have on here. Now, Donna, you're one of my favorites too. Valerie's daughter goes to Fair Oaks, so it's, you all got to know. I get a little self-defacing, but it's only for fun. Yeah, Fair Oaks Pres Services. Yes, he's killing it. Oh, I love that. Thanks, Heidi. Morning love and light to you all. Hi, Mimi. Let me see. Our services are phenomenal. Thank you, Sharon. I agree. I like our services too. It was a beautiful church until the earthquake took it down in 71. Oh, talking about Glendale Pres.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Back there. Chapel happened. Okay, so we'll get to that in a second. So, all right. So, Tim, you guys ran for what, 3 weeks, something like that? 3 or 4 weeks?
Actually, no. We only had on-campus services resume on the 28th. That we had 1 week only.
And then you turned around and said, "This isn't working."
It was right around that week, the 25th through the end of the week. The Sacramento County, there was this enormous spike in cases and hospitalization, not just tests positive, but cases, folks actually in the hospital. And so we made the decision to walk back our opening. So we're totally online now and not having in-person services.
Yeah. Well, and it's fascinating. I mean, our in-person services are, all we do is watch the video.
Well, that's what we were going to be doing too. I mean, yeah.
And yet, and so let's kind of move over to you as a counselor now, as a marriage and family counselor. I've experienced so much, and I've experienced this myself, but just this desperate need for proximity
Yeah.
of people. And that's what I've been watching our church family, the ones that are coming back, I believe are the ones that are saying, I need to be around some people and not even be fed the word of God. I mean, I can watch that on your service online, but I need to have that proximity with people. Like, talk to me about
Well, I
that.
totally agree. I mean, you don't have to be a licensed therapist to know that we're wired for community. I mean, human beings, we just need to be together. And what, particularly once you become a Christian, once you kind of give your life to Christ, you're part of a family that it's just weird not being around. I mean,
Right.
and so, I mean, so, people have been very accustomed to being, together in worship. And I think you take some time off, and I think it's got the potential to kind of create maybe a little mini awakening in people's hearts. Because I know this. I don't know how many people who watching know this, but that over the past 10, 15 years, every week worship has really taken a dive. I mean, your average people are in church 1.8 times a month.
Right.
And so, I mean, I'm hoping what this does is it kind of breathes new life into people's church attendance and their desire to be in community.
Right. And at the same time, you're breathing new life into hopefully reaching people that you wouldn't have reached previously online. And
Yes.
one of the things that we are working toward at Sunrise is we had talked about it for a long time, but that was going to live streaming our services, where like a true live stream of a live service that was happening. And we had talked about it for a long time. We just didn't have the right equipment, didn't have the right
Same with
people.
us. Yeah.
Yeah. But this COVID kind of forced our hand with that. And so we immediately went online, where we now, have a little more of a personal experience online versus before, where we were just dropping our sermons into a podcast form or, Vimeo video form. But now it's like, oh, we need to be streaming, sending out a whole service. But our goal now is, we've moved the goalposts, which is everything that's happening these days.
Right.
The goalposts are being moved constantly, it feels like. But we moved our goalposts towards streaming live, an actual live service. And thanks to some people that are willing to give some money, because this kind of equipment is not cheap. We're hoping in late August, to start streaming a service live
Awesome.
that we're putting on in a live way.
I think that's great for a church like Sunrise, because you guys have you cast such a shadow. I mean, I just think that Sunrise Church has been around for so long. So many people have, either been a part of that ministry or been touched by it. That Sunrise is one of the great churches in this area.
Well,
It always has been.
I love the legacy of this church. I mean, I met Sunrise as a church back when, well, the exact same time I met Fair Oaks. I mean,
Right.
that's the best part. I mean, they came. Fair Oaks came week 1, and Sunrise came week 3 of summer camp. So all my Sacramento kids were all connected with each other, and some would come, figure out they'd have such a good time coming up with Fair Oaks that they'd figure out a way to get on the bus with Sunrise 2 weeks later and come up. And Price, I adore Dave Price, and
He's a great guy.
and the legacy he has in ministry. But anyway, yeah, I'm excited to see what God does. What we're branding this as is we're launching an online campus. I mean, in effect, we're just saying, if we're going to be a multi-site church, our first multiple site is going to be an online campus that we can, try to pastor, rather than just putting this out there and letting people consume it. Let's try to reach people that are online and minister to people online.
Will you dedicate a staff person to that? In fact, I mean,
that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like how do we kind of reshuffle responsibilities in such a way? It's not like any of us can afford to add staff right now.
right.
So how do we adjust our priorities in such a way that we can have someone that's pastoring an online community? So that's one of the big questions we're asking right now. Let's take a little turn, because one of the things I want to dig into is something you and I have talked a bunch about, but that is your counseling ministry. And one of the great privileges I've had in the last few years is referring a number of people over to you, because for Sunrise, our counseling ministry is really a referral ministry. We have a strong list of really qualified, experienced counselors that we send people to, and our benevolence fund helps pay for that. Rather than creating our own counseling center. Tell us, our audience, we're up to 14 that are here, about what you guys are doing, what you're doing with your counseling ministry, how that fits with the church, and what role does Fair Oaks play in that, and
Sure.
those is that a good enough cast out there for a question?
I'll throw out a bit, kind of a big picture. I'm in private practice myself. I'm a private practice in marriage and family therapy. I do mostly individuals and couples. But years ago, I was asked to become a part of an organization that is now called Community Counseling Associates. But it was a ministry of First Covenant Church, which is now River City Church.
Yeah.
And, just years ago, they decided to get out of the business after we'd been doing it there about, I don't know, I'm going to say 15 years. They made some changes in their structure. And so we then moved to another church, operated there. And then my brother-in-law, Scott, is the one who said, hey, instead of bouncing around from church to church, every 15 years, why don't we create a nonprofit? And so we did. Community Counseling Associates is a 501c3 its main office is in my office complex at 5150 Sunrise Boulevard.
That may be my favorite part about it, is
I can never move.
Your address is 5150. I love that.
But we have an office there. So this is a nonprofit Christian based. We do get clients that are not believers, which is great. We love that. We hire interns. What used to be called interns, they're now called associates. They're people who are working on accumulating their hours. They all have their education, and they've got a registration number, but they're also supervised by Linda Carlos, who's our senior supervisor.
So great example of that. Elena Gatea was with you, and she's known by a lot of us at Sunrise, and came right up through that, and then is now, she's got her licensing, everything, right?
But she's with us still. See, here's the other thing, is we kind of morphed, and we wanted to try to keep our licensed people, so we've been able to do that. Elena has stayed with us, and she's now a licensed therapist working in one of our offices, actually 2 of our offices.
And she's good.
She's very good. I just highly recommend her, particularly for people who have any issues with anxiety. She's awesome with working with anxiety issues. So, what we do. We have 3 locations. We're at First Baptist in Davis. We have 2 offices there on their campus. We have 1 office at 5150 Sunrise, and then we have 3 offices on the campus at Fair Oaks Presbyterian. So several different locations that people can visit us at.
That's fantastic. And so all of you that Sunrise people that are out there, if you come to us to say, hey, I'm trying to get some counseling, probably a good chunk of the time we're depending on what the issue is. I know I've referred people over to you, Tim. I've referred people to Elena. We have Alicia Luna, who is a great friend of Sunrise, who does a lot of her ministry through Sunrise counseling ministry. But I love for us, we just have so many resources, and you guys are a big one for us. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. So
let me say, we've got a great website people can visit if you want to just know more about the organization. It's kind of a long handle, but it's communitycounselingassociates.org. Okay,
I am putting this into I call them the show notes. It's really just the little comment section over here.
Right.
Communitycounselingassociates.org. Let's see how I did, if that pops up. But thank you. That's a great resource, and I am a huge fan of Christian counseling. I mean, we could talk all day long about the necessity for counseling with not just the psychological principles out there, but really how to mesh that with scripture and so on. And
And
anyway, I've been
there's so much that's been done in this field in the last 20 or so years, Cliff. I mean, when I went to graduate school, it was pretty much just pure psychology.
right.
Now, for example, Western Seminary, which I taught there for 4 years, I taught a class called Advanced Integration, and so that class was all about integrating psychology with Christian theology. It's a fascinating, field, and I love it.
Well, and I really appreciate this, because I think for so long, because there wasn't an integration like this, you had some it feels like there was polarity, where you had this counseling world that you would kind of put a little Christian asterisk on it.
Yeah.
And then you had the opposite side, which was this biblical counseling model that that says you don't use any kind of, I'm inserting my own opinions here, but you don't really use any kind of psychological principles. It's only what's in scripture, and that's it. And psychology is kind of this thing of the devil. I probably shouldn't be saying
No,
that.
but there have been folks who that's been their experience too.
Right.
Well, so.
Right. And I think I get frustrated sometimes when I'm paying to go see a Christian counselor, and there's just zero integration whatsoever of biblical principles into that. And so to have that integration, I think, strikes an amazing balance.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So a couple of comments coming up here. Oh, Heather Johnson brought up this, and she's talking about, we're going back to how much we enjoy online services, is it allows them as a family to, as they're watching the service, to be able to have a conversation about what's being said, about what's coming out, versus, you can't exactly pause the preacher live and have a discussion while you're in the building. So, but she does mention the how hard it is that her son misses having youth group. And and that's one of the things we found. We did youth group over Zoom, and the kids need that proximity too. They really missed it, and they were kind of zoomed out in all of it. I'm kind of zoomed out, except for when I get to talk to you.
No Zoom fatigue on Mondays.
It's a great it's a really cool medium, but it can kind of exhaust us all.
It can.
Hey, you and I talked ahead of time. We got hopefully a special little surprise popping up on the screen here in just a couple of minutes. It has not come to us yet. So while we're waiting for what's going to happen next, just any way that you've been seeing God kind of working in your life, any scripture he's been taking you to recently, anything that's just standing out, going, this is something in scripture that God's been kind of working on me on these days?
Well, it's something that's been yes, lately, because at Fair Oaks we're in a series right now. The series is called No Matter What, and it's a study in the book of Philippians. So we're doing 8 weeks in Philippians, and I mean it's a pervasive concept throughout the Old and New Testament. But one of the things I love about what Paul does in Philippians is he really talks a lot about not only about joy. We're referring to no matter what joy, but he also talks a lot about the importance of maturity. And if there's one thing that integrates well for me and what I do for a living as a therapist with what I'm doing as a preacher, it's the whole issue of maturity. Because in fact, I had a person come to me for therapy, and then after about 3 or 4 sessions, he was making a lot of progress, and he said, I finally realized. The most important thing I've learned in therapy so far is I just need to grow up. And he was being funny, but there was a lot of truth in what he was saying.
There's so much truth to that.
Yeah,
Don't we all?
So the one verse that again, it's sprinkled throughout Paul's letters particularly, but one verse that I've loved these last few weeks because we've been in Philippians is chapter 1, verse 6, where Paul, he's talking about how glad he is that he's got this partnership with this Philippian church. Paul, again, remember, Paul's in jail, and he's writing this book about joy, which is just amazing to people who are free, and he's telling them how to experience, no matter what, joy.
Right.
And verse 6, he says, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. I think he's talking about that what God begins in us is it's God's architecture to grow us into maturity.
Yeah.
I think when psychologists, developmental psychologists, for example, discovered for example, Erik Erikson's 8 stages of psychosocial growth. I think
I learned about those in college.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And you've got Kohlberg and you've got Piaget, who has this 4 stages. But all these theorists have done, in my opinion, is discover the architecture of God in human personality. And so, to me, it's just that is brilliant. And the more Christians or any human being can just, integrate that information into their lives and understand the importance of continuing to grow psychologically. It changes your life, it changes your family's life, and it changes the world, it changes the community. So
yeah,
I'm just a big proponent of people monitoring their own growth and maturity.
Right. And I think one of the biggest things that comes to my mind with that is we have this whole concept of loving people where they are, and which I think is amazing. It's biblical. You love someone unconditionally, you accept them. But to rest and stay right where you are your entire life is like one of the most awful concepts I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And you should just accept me just like I am, for this. Like, I hope people don't just tolerate me to stay as is. I mean, I struggle with how I say this.
I think that's what Paul's whole point was, is he knew that the people he was right. He knew those people personally.
Right.
And, he probably knew there's a few weirdos in that church and there, but he said, he who began a good work is going to carry it to completion. And so I think this is Paul kind of coaching them, keep growing, keep being open to,
Oh, that's so good. Cause I sometimes get tired of just resting and just like swimming around in your sin and struggles and things like that and going, well, that's just how I am.
It's my lot in life.
Right. And it's not like we don't have to settle for that. And I think the part I love that Paul says here is he who began a good work in you will carry it to completion. Like, that's not my job to complete it. He's the one that's going to complete it.
Right. And the other point that Paul makes in Philippians, and you get that the more you read it, is that joy itself is not self-generated.
Right.
It all happens as a result. Happiness can be, you get, as long as you've got the new car smell in your life, new this or new that, everybody's happy. But joy is something that can transcend that.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And I love everything Philippians. I love. I tell you what, if I want to just get encouraged, I'm going to rest in Philippians for quite a while, and I love it when even in chapter 2, where Paul gets into talking about being like-minded, make my joy complete by being like-minded.
Yes.
Having the same love. And that's talk about a prayer for a church.
Yeah. Particularly during these times when it's a little harder to experience unity, right, when we're so separated. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And how do we do that? Maybe this is a good thing to kind of, oh, here it comes. All right. Maybe this is a good segue here.
Okay.
I am going to. So Heidi, the surprise is here. Yes, I did have a cliffhanger for you with
I love
that.
it.
But I'm going to bring Pastor Greg Triplett into the room here for a second. And oh, look at that. Greg is all masked up. Why don't you, Greg, turn sideways and go back. Let's see if we can get you
There we go.
on the screen correctly. Greg, welcome to the Backshed Bible Study this morning. What on earth are you doing?
We're celebrating, Cliff. Today is Iola's 96th birthday. And across the street from me, you can see the staging area where her friends are hopping into their cars and have their signs ready for a little drive-by celebration.
This is absolutely fantastic. So obviously, Greg, Tim, you guys know each other, so no introductions necessary here. Iola is like the most amazing person ever. Greg, how do we describe Iola to someone? Like, she is like the matriarch of our church in so many ways right now.
Yeah, she's just, 96 years old and never stopped serving and loving other people. She's always around. She's always there with a smile on her face on her Wednesday night cafe. She's the hostess right before you serve, passing out the plates and welcoming everybody. And you go back far enough in time, and back in the day, she was a cheerleader. And I have a fond memory of Iola when I first got to the church. It was about 5.5 years ago. We had an adult ministries dinner to appreciate all the volunteers in the ministry, and we broke into teams based on what ministry, and we asked each ministry to make a cheer for themselves. Well, Iola, who was into her 90s at the time, led the cheer for women's ministry. And I have to say, it was probably the most enthusiastic and energetic cheer that we had that night. So that's just a little snippet of who Iola is, and just, how her energy and her joy has brought, just been a blessing to so many people.
Yeah, she is absolutely amazing. She has led a charge in the last few years, even at Sunrise, to have more and better ministry towards singles that are in their adult years, as opposed, kind of in their late 20s to 30s. Some of that missing group that doesn't get necessarily ministered to easily in a church, and she's had a heart for that. She's always front and center when you're preaching a sermon, and part of that so she can read your lips. And do you know what? Yes, okay. So Donna brings up her bathroom ministry. I love this part. Greg, tell us about Iola's bathroom ministry.
Yeah, I think just her heart is just, how can I be there for people and bless people? So our women's restroom in our main worship center has kind of a lounge area, and she'll just plant herself there on a Sunday morning and just pray and ask God to show her for opportunities to minister to others. And so sometimes people will go in there just to get away, or even sometimes just, they're emotional or things are going on and they just sit down, and she's right there just lend an ear and to be there for them, and just looks for opportunities to be a blessing to other women in the women's restroom lounge.
I love it. And Marilyn Robertson says it so clearly. She says Iola has never retired from service to God, and
absolutely,
boy, that's who I desire to be. Elizabeth Peterson says she prays in the ladies' lounge at Sunrise after first service. She stopped me on my way in, asked me about myself, was super friendly. That's how I met her. And right, so many people have that story. Thank you, Barbara Dawn. What a gem Iola is. Absolutely. So, Greg, what do you see there? What's going to happen over there? Do we hang with you, or do we close things out here? What do you think we should do?
Well, we got the staging area over here. There's about 20 cars right now. There's a few more pulling in. I don't know exactly what time they're going to leave and join the parade. But if you're willing to hang around, it might be fun to keep this on Facebook and let the world see it a little bit. I would actually walk down and get an interview with Iola, but I have not been informed as to what extent this is a surprise for her or not. So I'm not
Right.
going to be the one to go down there and spoil anything. But by the group that's gathered in the parking lot here, you can tell she's pretty loved, and it looks like half the people are in their cars ready to roll, and half are still engaged in social hour, which sounds about right.
Well,
So
maybe we'll hang on here for a few minutes. And Tim, I don't know what kind of timing you have, but you're welcome to hang on as long as you want, or as head out and jump in the pool or enjoy a walk through the neighborhood. I'm guessing you're right down the street from me right now.
yeah, or even if you and Tim have some things you want to wrap up, I can mute for a second and come back in once things get started here.
Well, gosh, what on earth have we been? Oh, my dog decided to join us. Here we go. And my son. This is going to be fun. Gosh, Tim, what did we miss?
Can I jump in here with one comment?
Yeah.
I love this segue. The Iola segment is great. Make this one point, and that's this. So many people, when you talk about maturity and you talk about human development, people get this idea that, well, to understand developmental psychology, the last stage of development, according to Eric Erickson, is 65, the age 65. Well, the thing that a lot of people forget about is that we continue to mature for as long as we live. We're not through maturing when we hit 30. I mean, we grow into our adult years, we grow beyond that. But a lot of people think, oh, you can't teach an old dog no new tricks. Once you hit 65 or so, there's no, you're not going to change much. And people, even will say, you're not going to change me. But I think we owe it to the rest of the community to be open to change for as long as we live. And it sounds like Iola is living that kind of legacy life, where she's allowing herself to grow and change and be used, into her, 90s.
I love what you had to say there, Tim. Like that's so true, because I think there's sometimes a mentality of people like, I'm just going to retire at 65, take my pension, buy my motorhome, and life's going to be easy, right? And travel to Spain back and forth when I can. No, that's not anyway.
Well, but that's what, I've loved doing that, but there are so many opportunities when you get to Spain and get to France we've got churches over there that they have almost no resources in marriage and family. So, I love going over there and doing seminars and teaching pastors. And, that's how important, once we get into our 60s, we may not have the demands of everyday work like we did when we were in our 30s and 40s, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
Right. And I loved watching you, especially, I mean, you obviously, your daughter Tracy and her husband are over in Spain, and that gives you a nice excuse to be over there. But talk about going to a place where the church desperately needs help and people to, inject more in there. It's so good.
The church in Western Europe is growing like a weed right now. There are several, new church starts. One that I'm particularly interested in, young guy that I've known since he was a boy. He and Todd played guitar together when we did a mission trip in France, back in 2006. This guy's now a pastor. He's starting a brand new church in Aix-en-Provence, which is a city in the south of France.
I've been there twice.
Okay, he's starting a church there. It's so excited about what he's doing, and I just want to participate in it.
That is fascinating. I had a friend who was a pastor of a church in Aix-en-Provence many years. Darren Jones.
Oh yeah, Darren. I stayed in Darren's house my first time there.
Okay, yeah, and Darren's, I think his parents maybe still in the area or somewhere near here.
I preached for him when he came to the States.
So that's great. Darren and I went to college together at Iola.
Wow.
So
okay.
Oh man, Greg, you're looking good over there.
Greg, is it hot outside?
I'm in the shade of this large tree, which is just awesome. So I'm super comfortable. Apparently later this week we'll be hitting hundreds, but right now is perfect. So
is it a sycamore tree? Are you going to climb up in it so you can get a better view of what's going on?
No, it looks like some sort of pine or something. That's not the pine tree. I don't know what I'm talking about. But what do you guys think? Do we have any botanists online that know what tree
Uh,
I'm standing under here?
all I
know
know is
maybe about 3 types of trees.
those are junipers below it, and they are evil.
Yeah.
Gosh,
So,
let me do a little honor to Iola here. We have a number of people that are making comments about Iola online here, and one, Donna Dews, says she taught a Bible study called Ordinary Women that changed her life. Sharon Soden talks about Ray's family and hers were close when they all lived down in Southern California. Okay. Kathy Wainscott says, I've known Iola since I was in high school. I love her. She will always be a part of my family. She knew my parents so well. And then talking about Donna in her 70s, she is someone, Donna Dews, which, gosh, if you don't know Donna, like Donna is amazing. This woman has just a love for the Lord, a love for her church and her church family. And she's does everything she can to be involved in a number of different ways. And she also puts together our communion and all that. It's like you're just never done. I love that. If there's anything that's the theme that comes out this morning is you know, you never stop maturing in Christ. It's always going to continue on. Do I get to hold my daughter?
No, I need
You need.
I need your consultation.
Okay. Can you two, this is good because Greg Triplett's online right now. So Greg, you take over hosting for a second. I'm going to mute myself and go do a consultation here in the kitchen really quick. Okay.
Sounds great. All right, let me flip over so I can see you, Tim. There you are.
Yeah.
This is kind of fun. The parade's getting started. I'm gonna start walking this way a little bit, and we'll walk and talk a bit.
Sure.
So, Tim, one question I have for you is just, you know, a fellow pastor and as someone who has a lot of insight into just culture and people. What do you kind of make of these times? What are some things that you're taking away with just what's happening in our world and where you see things going?
Well, I kind of alluded to this earlier with Cliff. I didn't really say it in so many words, but one of the things I'm hoping for is that the church will kind of renew its passion for regular church worship. You know, one of the things that's concerned me over the years is the Sunday morning worship experience has become one option among many in people's lives. You know, there's you know, all kinds of things you can go do on a Sunday morning. And it used to be, back when I was a kid, at least, worship, you went to church every Sunday, but then you might go and do other things as well. And I'm just concerned that the average, you know, committed believer is in church like 1.8 times a month, you know, and that may be a good month. So I'm hoping that, you know, this kind of this starvation mode that we're in as far as worship goes will result in people kind of be pushing a reset button in people's lives for being regular and being really involved in what the church is doing in the community.
And what about on the church's side? Do you feel like there's any ways the church is going to have to adjust or adapt?
Well,
just in a sense,
I don't think we can go back to a non-presence on the internet. I think we're going to have to be live every weekend now, and we need to be, and live and on demand, because I think you know, one of the things this has done is it's made everybody kind of up their game, if you will, in terms of using technology to reach the world. And there's just so many brilliant pastors out there and churches that are doing great things that I just don't see how we can go back to not being a presence like we've become in these last months.
Yeah. You know, what you said about like many great pastors out there kind of brings up a current reality that you can go online and be, you know, have access at any moment to some of the best sermons, some of the best music. What is it that the church in person, in your perspective, what does the church in person provide that the internet can't?
A relationship. I just think it's knowing people and being known is so valuable. That's the piece that people are really, I mean, I have people that are complaining, oh, we want to go to worship, we want to be, but what they're really complaining about is that they're not together with this family that they've united with and become a part of. And it's really hard. And it's hard on children, and it's hard on youth as well. It's not just adults that are suffering. We need that kind of relationship. We're wired for it.
Yep. And I think that's some of the tension that we face as a church, because a lot of the Sunday morning experience is focused on what happens on a stage, while the great longing, I'd say, especially of everybody, but you see it especially in the younger generation, is just how do we connect? Where's the space just to dig deeper? And so, I obviously it's not all about just the Sunday morning experience, but I think it'll be interesting to see how we tackle some of that as we consider what the future looks like.
Well, and I think one of the things we have seen is that, like in our church, for example, I think people have stayed in close proximity or stayed in touch via their life groups and small groups, because that's been the only option for community. And I think those have gotten stronger in a lot of cases.
Absolutely. Well, the parade has started.
Awesome.
The line of cars is coming. I'm making my way down the road. Iola's out here with her friends and family.
How far are you now from Iola?
About 50 feet.
Oh, okay, good.
So I'll turn around here. You can see the parade. Sun's a little bright this way, but
how many cars are there?
I think we've got about 20 to 30 cars. Here's the birthday girl right here.
Awesome.
I'm gonna keep coming for a bit here. It's not every day you get to see a 96th birthday parade. That's pretty special.
It's not. So, Greg, how is she reacting to all this?
Oh, there's a smile on her face. She's enjoying her strawberry right there.
Oh, nice.
96th birthday balloon.
Wow. Now, does Iola live by herself, or does she live in a?
She has a roommate.
Okay.
How's it going?
Very good.
Can you say hi to the Sunrise Facebook world?
Hi.
They're saying
Good
happy
morning,
birthday to you
Iola.
right now.
Hi. Love you. Happy birthday.
Oh, look, the parade's coming back around.
Greg, this is absolutely fantastic. I love this. Donna, everything is okay. We just have people measuring for kitchen countertops in our house this morning, so had to deal with that. What was I missed the discussion? What was the staggering statistic on church attendance that was discussed there?
Oh, we were just mentioning. I was just talking again about, the 1.8.
Oh yeah.
And about how I hope that this pandemic kind of pushes a reset button for church attendance.
Yeah. It's well, if there was ever a time when God has called us to be his ambassadors in a world that desperately needs it, it's right now.
Yeah.
Tim, I had an experience this past week that was pretty encouraging, and I'd love to hear, after I tell the story, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what does a time like this do for people when it kind of hits the reset button. I was talking with this gal who reached out to our church and said she wanted to get baptized, and I didn't really know her or know her story. So I gave her a call, and basically a few months ago, because of COVID and being stuck inside and the uncertainty of these times, she just decided she was going to start reading her Bible. And she read her Bible cover to cover, and through that came to know clearly who Jesus was and gave her life to him.
Wow.
And this Saturday, we're baptizing her in a backyard pool. And you hear stories like that, and you're just like, man, this is amazing. God's totally at work right now. What I was wondering if you could just speak to what does it mean to have kind of a reset, and for people at a time like this to just in general reevaluate maybe some of their priorities.
Well, I think the people have had a lot more time alone. You know, it's like I wonder if it's sort of a belly of the fish kind of deal for a lot of people. Time to think about their lives, and time to think about the kind of decisions they're making, and a time to kind of become more aware of the people they missed, you know, the relationships they missed. And I think that
absolutely
that even I think creates you know, an awareness of a spiritual void in people's lives.
Yeah, I just heard another story recently of a neighbor who, her and her husband worked their whole lives. They're in their 60s now. And their daughter, who's in her 40s, who has a 4-year-old daughter who's also been a professional since she was like basically out of college, because of this time has said, I'm not working again. I just want to be at home with my 4-year-old daughter and get to know her. And so like for her whole trajectory is completely shifted because this was forced upon her. And, you know, for her, everything's changed looking forward.
Wow. So she's kind of, the reset button has gotten pushed for her family relationships. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I just think that's so cool when that when that happens, as opposed to someone, you know, having a negative take on this whole thing and getting sick and tired of being with one another. I mean, Terry and I have enjoyed being together more, quite frankly. And, you know, and we've been together, you know, this is our 43rd, you know, anniversary this year. And depending on how you know, how healthy your relationships are, this can also be a time where you learn to appreciate the people you're quarantined with.
This, I got to tell you, wow, this is so fun to be watching and to be talking with you guys at the same time. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so I'm wondering if this is a loop we're watching. Is it the same 20 cars that just keep going around?
Yeah, they went by and then they turned around and they're coming back now.
Okay,
so
because I didn't think Sunrise was that big.
Yeah. Iola's fan base is that big.
Iola's fan base is pretty big, but oh my goodness, look at her. Someone confident talked about her swinging feet. Heidi loves Iola's swinging her feet back and forth there. Well, I tell you what, if there ever was someone who just modeled what it's like to walk with Christ every day, there she is right there. And she lives it. So
such a great turnout.
Yeah, this is really cool.
So
yeah,
so this is not Greg taking an offering, is it? These are just gifts for Iola, I'm assuming.
Yeah, no.
Okay, all right.
No, I'm the one who crashed the party.
Okay, all right.
Oh, that's way too good.
Yeah, whenever I get the chance, I tell Iola that she's got at least 10 more good years in her.
Awesome.
Easily. Oh, well, this is a good place to wrap this up for the day, and I can say just a huge thank you, Tim. Thank you so much for being a part of Backshed Bible Study today. I, for one, was really blessed just to be able to talk to a friend and get to introduce some people to a friend of mine, a guy that I respect a lot, a great neighbor, a great pastor, a great counselor, and a good friend. I am just super grateful for you, Tim, and just thank you for the example you are. And we sure love you guys at Fair Oaks. It is, you know, it's fun to me to, you know, this is something pastors get to talk about, but we've had a few people bounce back and forth between our churches over the years.
Yes, we have.
You got some great people that I really love that are hanging out over there right now, and we'll get them back one of these days. But no, anyway, I'm sorry.
It's just one bad sermon away.
That's right.
You're one bad sermon away.
But just great friends, great partners in ministry, and what a great morning to be able to celebrate legacy through Iola, and just how that fits in with that Philippians 1:6 passage that you read, Tim.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna close us in prayer, and Tim, I'll pray for you and Fair Oaks along the way too.
Thank you.
Lord, I just thank you so much for giving us an amazing unity in the church. Thank you for Fair Oaks, for years and years of legacy in that church, and what you have done through them. And thank you for this new generation that is leading Fair Oaks towards what you have called them to right now. I especially pray as they launched last week and then stopped this week, and are just continuing online, Lord. I just pray that you would expand their ministry, expand their horizons, that you would give their leadership team wisdom as they navigate these just strange waters. And thank you for someone like Iola this morning that just shows us what it means to live well your entire life, and to follow you wholeheartedly, and to never retire from ministry. And so God, I thank you. I've been blessed in a huge way, and would you continue to do an amazing work here. And Lord, sovereign God, we trust you because you are trustworthy, because you are holy, because you are faithful. And God, we trust you that you are going to continue to do an amazing work. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. Hey, thank you guys. Greg, good to see you too.
Hey,
Greg.
great to see you as well, Tim.
Hey, Greg, thanks so much for heading out there this morning and representing well. And thank you all for joining us today. Hope you've enjoyed Backshed Bible Study yet again. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Monday at 10 o'clock when we welcome Steve Heller to the Backshed. And we're going to talk a little bit about men in HD and some of the things that God is doing through that ministry coming up soon. But have a great week. We'll see you all next week. God bless you.